Afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on evaluating personal career wellness. This webinar is brought to us today through a burgeoning partnership with Liberty Mutual Insurance. Career wellness refers to the state of one's overall career satisfaction and success, encompassing various aspects such as work-life balance, personal growth, and job fulfillment. This presentation will cover the basics of what career wellness is, as well as how to evaluate your own personal career wellness before employment, while searching for a position, and during your tenure with an employer. Our presenter today is Steph Kalina. Steph is a fellow of the Casualty Actuarial Society, say that 5 times fast, and a Master of Actuarial Science from Boston University. Steph joined Liberty Mutual in 2015 and currently manages a team of data scientists focused on creating generalized linear models supporting Safeco private passenger auto. She's a career changer, having previously been a lab manager at MIT before pivoting to actuarial science. And Steph is a new mom to a 9-month-old daughter. So Steph, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Tiffany. Welcome everybody to the talk on career wellness. We're going to get into it. I'm Steph. Let's see. So today we're going to do some quick introductions to me. We're going to spend about 20 to 30 minutes going over what career wellness is and its place throughout your career. We're going to spend about 10 to 15 minutes on an activity and then spend the remainder of the time on any questions that you may have for me. If you have any questions during this presentation, feel free to interrupt me, call them out. You're also welcome to save them for the end. I definitely encourage questions throughout, so don't be shy. A little bit about me. I graduated Boston University twice. I received my bachelor's degree in psychology and then went back to get a master's degree in actuarial science. In between that, in another life, I was a lab manager, then went back to get a master's degree. I received my fellowship in the Casualty Actuarial Society in 2021. If you don't know what an actuary is, you're in good company. Most people don't know what it is. It basically just means I'm an insurance professional. I had to take a ton of exams over the course of many, many years. And now I know personal line, or now I know property and casualty insurance very well. I joined Liberty Mutual in 2015 through something called the Actuarial Development Program. This is something a lot of larger insurance companies offer for young actuaries. And through the development program, I had a series of different roles throughout the company, eventually landing in my current role where I'm a manager of a team of data scientists. My team works on generalized linear models. And yeah, love it, new manager, so still learning the ropes there. I feel very strongly that everybody has to have at least one fun fact. My fun fact, in 2013, I was on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives in a Boston episode. I did not get to meet Guy Fieri, but if any of you have the opportunity to get free food through the Food Network, I highly recommend it. It was amazing and a great experience, and I got to eat a lot. Outside of work, I love spending time with my family. I love anything outdoors. I am a new mom, so I'm trying to figure out how to do that with a baby, which can be challenging. I live really close to the beach, so love spending as much time there as I can throughout the year. I also am a huge Bravo fan. While I was taking my actuarial exams, I found that it was just a great way to get my brain to turn off. I personally have a lot of experience with career wellness. I'm a new mom, so I'm trying to navigate, my personal time with my family as well as time at my job. I'm a career changer, so I've seen how different industries handle career wellness and personal time management. And I recently transitioned to management. So previously I was in a role, receiving support from my direct manager. And now I'm in charge of a few employees, and it's up to me to make sure that they feel supported in their role. Okay, so we're going to jump into what career wellness is. There's a lot of different definitions floating around. This one really resonated with me, that career wellness can be defined as engaging in work that provides personal satisfaction and enrichment, and that's consistent with your values, goals, and lifestyle. Really, career wellness is about how your professional and your personal needs interact with one another. Candidly, I had never heard of career wellness until about 2020, but I've been seeing hallmarks of it over the past several years. I've been working a very corporate job for 8 years, so I've gotten to see this sort of span from its infancy. In 2020, we were all there. The global pandemic happened, and it really changed how people worked and how they lived. They were facing a lot of mental health fallout from years under pandemic restrictions, economic uncertainty, social unrest. And during that time, employers saw that many employees were dealing with depression, anxiety, and burnout, and that it was impacting their performance in their role. So this idea of career wellness really came to be with the goal of addressing employee wants and for employees themselves to recognize what their needs are and advocate for themselves with their employer. As a result, employers are now shifting their mindset with the goal that employees are able to bring their whole selves to work. You'll hear that probably a lot throughout employment. Just being able to truly be yourself when you're at your place of employment. There is an ongoing need for employees and employers to check in on themselves, to check in on wellness, and to constantly reevaluate best practices to make sure everyone's needs are being adequately addressed. Again, I've seen this happen just in the past few years, from things as small as dress code changes, being able to wear more comfortable clothes to work, to even larger initiatives to make all employees feel comfortable expressing themselves while they're on the job. As with anything employer related, you should always ask yourself why your employer is going to care about this. But it's actually important for both you, the employee, and your employer to have career wellness in mind. Employers really have an incentive to care about your personal career wellness for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, if an employee's skills align with business goals, they can really, or the employer's goals, they can really help fill gaps during times of economic uncertainty or high attrition, high turnover. During times of when your employer is unstable, having an employee be able to jump in and fill those roles is really important. Also important, an engaged employee and a motivated employee is a productive employee. It's people who are really engaged and motivated in their role that ask and answer really deep dive questions and are able to provide the most product at work. Also, a happy employee sticks around. Backfilling a position is really expensive and it takes a long time to onboard anybody. So employers want to retain good talent so that everybody sticks around longer. Both the employee and the employer are responsible for career wellness and satisfaction. And it's important to hold yourself and your employer accountable for how work intersects with life and speak up if it's not meeting your needs. According to a Gallup study on well-being, people who are happy and satisfied attend to 5 major interconnected elements of wellness: career, social, financial, physical, and community. It's not hard to see how career impacts all of these other areas. If your career impacts how much time you can devote to your social life, it definitely impacts your financial health, can impact your physical health through your benefits package, your health insurance, how much time you're able to devote to your physical health, and also how much you're able to interact with your community. So it's really important to keep in mind that your career impacts a lot of different aspects of your well-being. Career wellness, it impacts a lot of stuff: work-life balance, engagement and role, values, personal goals, career aspirations, mental health. Really, it's about aligning your career with your personal life to make sure there's an achievable balance and that your needs are being met from all angles. So we've gone through what the definition of career wellness is. Now we're going to pivot to how to evaluate career wellness, deciding what you want out of an employer. We're going to spend the next few slides diving deep into this topic, and it's important to think about this now before committing to an employer and before filling out like a job application. First and foremost, your employer's values. Sometimes this is going to matter to you, sometimes it won't. Think about yourself personally. Does it matter to you what your employer's values are? If it does, take a look at the employer's mission statement. It's often found on their website or the school's website. How does that company or school or employer involve itself in the local community? Do you see them out there performing work that you yourself support and that's aligned with your personal values? Just as an example, my employer, Liberty Mutual, they provide an annual day of service for all employees where we go out into our local communities and volunteer and are encouraged to continue that volunteer relationship as we're able to. So I really see my employer practicing what they preach. And if it's important to you, again, if that's something that really resonates with you, definitely take a look at any employer's mission statement and make sure that it aligns with your personal values. Also important is your own career mobility and your own career path. If you have a career path in mind, think about what you might need to get there. Do you require some kind of on-the-job training? Do you have to take additional exams? Do you need to get an additional degree, for example, take an online coding course? Whatever the case may be, will your employer support that training that you need to reach that next level? For me, as an example, I went through the actuarial development program. I needed an employer to support my actuarial exam process. Taking exams is super expensive and time consuming. And you, as an actuary, you really need an employer to financially support that. Otherwise, it's going to be extremely difficult to make it through the exam process. You should also be thinking about different stages of your career. What do you want out of a career, out of a job at this stage and in the future? Do you see like a clear path to get from where you are now to where you want to be? And does that path stay at the same employer, or is it something you're going to need to switch industries, switch roles in order to get to where you want to be in the future? You should also think about your career trajectory over time. Maybe right now you can spend a lot of time on your career, you can spend a lot of time getting yourself as involved as possible in your work, but in 5, 10, 15 years, you want to pivot to focusing more on your own personal life or your community or something else that really brings value to your life. And that's okay. Your career and your job should be able to pivot. It should be able to change with you. Also important is where you physically work. It impacts a lot of your life. Maybe you're somebody that really does well in remote roles. You love having heads down time. Maybe you work in a lab, so you have to be in office, or you really do well being around other people, having those really nice face-to-face interactions, or maybe some kind of hybrid mix of the two works best for you. Regardless, where you physically work is going to impact who you're able to network with and who you're able to socialize with. If you've had to physically move for employment, this is definitely going to impact your social connections. And sometimes your employer is going to be your only source of social connections, at least for a while, again, especially if you've moved for a job. So as you're looking at employers, as you're looking for employment, think about if you feel like you're going to get along with the other people that work there. Building a network, a professional network, is really important. It's how a lot of work gets done, how a lot of collaboration happens. So think about, again, if you feel like you'll be able to click and mesh well with who currently works there. You can also do this through a rotational program, like I mentioned, or I really highly encourage mentorship programs for if you're a new employee, if you're able to get partnered with a more senior person who has been with the employer for a while, they can help you navigate through that employer, give you career advice, and it just provides for a really great, healthy professional relationship. You can, again, try finding mentors either through a program officiated by your employer. You can also try to do it on your own time. If you're working virtually, always turn on your camera. It helps for everyone to see each other's faces and how they react to things. Attend social and virtual events, and make time to conduct informational interviews. Even if you're not going to be directly working with somebody, it always helps to just meet with people just to get to know what they do on the job. It helps so that you can create a personal connection with that person. and maybe collaborate with them in the future. Also, not everybody's favorite topic, but small talk is also important. It can help really lead to big things. It helps humanize you and really helps with networking. Small talk, I always tell my team, it's a skill you just need to develop, like just like a muscle, you've got to work on it and flex it. And lastly, your whole health matters. So take a look at what the compensation package looks like. What's offered in terms of health insurance, what's offered in terms of the retirement plan. If you're planning on being with that employer for a long time, that retirement plan especially can be very important. Also, the base salary and bonus structure is also very important, especially if you're providing for a family. And maybe additional employer-specific perks are something that really is important to you. Maybe you really want to have a gym on site or get like a discount to a cell phone provider or whatever the case may be. So think about what you want out of a compensation package before conducting a job search. That way you know ahead of time what you're looking for. Your physical health is also something to keep in mind, particularly related to commute length. This can really take a toll on your physical health and how much time you're able to commit to the different healthy activities. Your psychological safety is also important. A lot of employers will have a mental health professional on site that you can utilize, or you can utilize one through the benefits package that's offered. Regardless, I will say that it's always important to have a safe space for disagreements with your employer. If you see something happening, if a decision's made, or really, and if anything happens with your employer, having a safe space to voice your concern, voice your disagreement, and feel like your employer is really taking that seriously and handling it well is very important to your psychological safety and feeling satisfied with your work. So now that we've discussed items to keep in mind before your job search, let's pivot now to evaluate career wellness during your job search. And did my screen just go blank? Oh, okay, went blank on my side. Okay. So we've discussed a lot of these in prior slides, but just to reiterate, there are a lot of items to keep in mind during your job search. And as you research and interview employers, try to keep these items in mind. The company culture, the employer culture, do you enjoy the organizational culture? Do you see yourself fitting in? Do you agree with the employer's values? And are values of an employer important to you? The employer's stability, will they be around in 5 to 15 years? Are they a startup? Does that not matter to you because you're planning on leaving after a year or two anyway? Where are you physically going to work? This and how that's going to fit in with your own personal schedule. Flexibility is also an important one that I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about before they commit to an employer. Maybe you're a caregiver, maybe you have a reoccurring doctor's appointment that you need to attend to every week or so. Whatever the case may be, is your employer able to accommodate your schedule with flexibility? Just as a personal example, I'm a new mom. I need to be able to tie in daycare pickup, drop off with my work schedule. That means at 4:30 every day, I need to be offline, full stop. I cannot commit to any meetings after that. And that's just how it has to be. So fortunately, my employer is able to accommodate that. And they have also been able to accommodate my study schedule when I was taking actuarial exams. So that's something, at least for me, that is really, really important because I want to be able to attend to things in my personal life as I need to. The benefits package offered by your employer is also very important. And it's really important, especially that they are adequate for your needs and your family's needs if you're supporting a family. The compensation package, equally important, doesn't meet your needs. Are you going to be able to support whoever you need to support with the compensation that's being provided? Growth opportunities at an employer are also extremely important. Is there a clear career trajectory at this employer that's clearly laid out? Is there room to grow there? Or again, maybe you're planning on leaving after a year or two to develop yourself at another employer, which is a-okay, but you want to think about what you can get out of that employer while you're there. Does the work-life balance seem doable? And finally, is this employer able to offer you any support that you need, either through tuition reimbursement, coding classes, whatever it is that you need to get to that next step for your career? Can this employer offer that support to you? So I think anybody who's ever conducted interviews will tell you that one of the most important things you can do as a candidate is to ask questions like how work is going to be with an employer, and ask really specific targeted questions about the employer to the interviewer. So I'd really encourage everybody to take the Q&A opportunity in interviews to ask questions pertaining to career wellness. Things like, do you have hobbies outside of work or time for hobbies outside of work? Does this employer provide on-the-job training for skills? Questions like that. It'll help you stand out as a candidate, but also help you interview your interviewer. You should also, as you know, be performing your own research through sites like LinkedIn, informal informational interviews, Glassdoor, professional message boards. With all of these, keep in mind they're online, so anybody can post. Some employers will pay to have really positive reviews written. Sometimes disgruntled employees are the most likely to write reviews. So as with anything on the internet, take it with a grain of salt, but it can really help you get an idea of what it's like to work for the company. If you know anybody that works for that employer, it can also be really helpful just to schedule some time to, grab a coffee with somebody and really dive deep in an informal setting to find out if that's a place that you can see yourself fitting in. So once you have a job, you should continue to evaluate career wellness during your employment. I would encourage you to check in on yourselves often when you're with an employer, just to make sure that it's still the right fit for you. You can do this by asking things related to your work-life balance, such as, how do you feel internally and physically when you think about going to work? Does it fill you with anxiety? Do you absolutely hate your job? Or is it something you're excited about or just feel neutral about? Do you feel supported at your job? Do you feel okay voicing disagreements? Do you feel like you're getting the professional support that you need to thrive? Do you feel like you're able to take leave when and if you need it? If you need to take medical leave, if you want to go on an extended vacation, whatever the case may be, is that encouraged through your employer, and do you feel okay asking for it? Do you have time to do the things that you genuinely enjoy doing outside of work? And do you have time to commit yourself to your personal relationships? If you're answering no or not feeling great to a lot of these, it might be time to switch employers. You can also try managing your day-to-day stress. We're all adults, so I'm sure everybody has ways that they manage their stress personally, but I would encourage mindfulness activities, journaling, maybe even just taking like a minute or two at the beginning of work day to focus on breathing if it's a particularly stressful day. Regardless, fostering a positive mindset is really going to help you evaluate whether or not that employer is still a good fit for you. And last, I'm going to end on a little bit of a bummer topic, but something that I think impacts all of us, which is burnout. It's a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion created by excessive and prolonged stress. Burnout occurs when you feel overwhelmed, you're emotionally drained, and you're unable to meet constant demands. It really reduces your productivity and it makes you feel helpless. Signs and symptoms of burnout are, you've been dealing with prolonged stress. You might feel just a sense of failure when you think about whatever you're doing at work. You feel a lot of self-doubt, imposter syndrome. Physically, you're feeling headache, you're getting headaches a lot, you're having sleeping trouble. Maybe you're noticing yourself procrastinating a lot or withdrawing from responsibilities, not answering emails, not answering questions that come through daily. To deal with burnout, first and foremost, find a mental health care option that works for you and that you can fit into your schedule. That's the most important thing. But on top of that, recognize and watch for signs of burnout. Try to take care of yourself physically and emotionally and seek support. It can really help to have friends at work, just to have people to vent to when you're feeling particularly frustrated. And try to manage your stress as much as possible. One thing that can really help is setting goals for yourself personally and professionally. Giving yourself something to look forward to and a framework for accomplishing it really helps battle burnout and helps you recognize it in the moment. Okay, so now we are going to pivot to an activity, and I think we can actually avoid doing breakout rooms and just discuss this as a group. So on the next slide, I'm going to have 5 items that are on the screen, and on a piece of paper in front of you, or just, internally, if you don't have a piece of paper, think about assigning a percentage to each of the items that I show when you're trying to answer the question, what drives meaning for you? So what drives meaning for you, meaning why do you want to work? Why do you want to go to work every day? Why do you show up every day? It turns out that what drives meaning for people is different for each person. What gives meaning at work is likely different for every single person on this call. So we're going to go through each of these 5 categories. And again, jot down a percentage, or you can even rank them of which ones are most important. The percentage should add up to 100. What drives meaning for you? Is it the company or organization? Is it really important to you to have industry leadership, to beat the competition? Do you really resonate with the employer's mission statement? Or is improving a customer's experience, whether it's an internal customer or an external customer, is that what's most important to you? Do you really enjoy providing superior service and solving for customer needs? Or is it important for you to benefit society in some way? You want to improve society, you want to build a community, you want to be able to steward resources responsibly. Or is it important for you to just feel a sense of belonging on a team and being on a high-performing team? Or is it most important for you to have a personal meaning and a personal connection to your job? Maybe you really thrive having intellectual stimulation, being able to thrive and develop professionally, and being able to support your family financially, or just financially in general, those incentives, maybe that's what's most important. So I'm going to give everybody a minute or two just to think about these and jot them down in front of you, and then we'll come back together, I guess in maybe 2 minutes, and just we can go around and chat about what's most important to each of us. Now, if you'd like to, I can go first just to demonstrate, but afterwards we can go around, and if you'd like to unmute yourself and just share what you put, what was most important for you, and kind of what you consider. For me, I'm 60% personal, 20% team and customer. Personally, I really like intellectual stimulation. I took like 7 years of actuarial exams. I love math. I love a challenge. It's really important to me to be able to financially support my family. So I have personal reasons, and that's definitely why I go to work every day. But in second place, equally, I love the team that I work with. It's really important to me to feel like I click with who I work with and that I can rely on them and they can rely on me, which also has to do with customer. I really want to be able to have my team provide correct products to our internal customers, and the product that my team works on is customer facing. If you're out in the wild and you purchase a Safeco policy, that's something that my team touches. So it's really important to me that that's accurate, correct, and that we can stand behind everything that we price. So those are mine. If anybody would like to go next, feel free to unmute yourselves and go for it. Jeff,
I'll jump in there since everybody else is being shy. I'm going 10. I go 10% for the company organization. I did 40% for the customer, and in my role, that would be the scholars and students involved in our program. Society, I'm giving a 10 to. Team, I'm giving a 10 to, and 30% on the personal, my own well-being, my own goals and activities. I'm giving a 30% to. I had to debate about. I did a couple erasures and redistributing the percentages a couple times, and that's what I came up with. But with a little bit more discussion, I probably could move the numbers around even more.
Well, I can continue if after Dr. Abraham. As Dr. Abraham was just mentioning, sometimes the nuances, it can be, it depends on the, I guess the terms. But even though I get driven by personal, going personal first, personal goals, objectives. But I have, maybe, I don't know if because I'm in social sciences a lot, but society, I have this concept of, like, you have to work on the new generations, right? Make them think, make them aware of what's going on. So that's how you improve society, right? Good thinkers, right? Bring new ideas. So societies, it sounds crazy because I know people usually, when I speak to them, they're like, "What, Jeff, why are you always giving?" I know, I'm like, "But I'm sorry, but in society, it is the one that are the givers and the takers, right?" But I'm a giver, so I think that once you improve society, things get better around you. Everything just improves. And then the company, organization, team, I think if you improve society, your persona, right? Society, and then the customer experiences, the team and the company organization, everything's just going to improve with it because it's linked to it.
that's great. Thanks for sharing, Jeff. Oh, go ahead, Leslie.
Hi, I just unmuted myself. This was an interesting challenge for me. So I work in education, so the customer is important, obviously. So I put 25% of that, but I'd be willing to move that and balance it more with team, where I put 50%, because I think it's really important to have a good team with you in the world of education. So I put 50 for team, 25 for customer, 10% for society, because I think, again, it's like what Jeffrey was saying, they kind of end up being kind of blending together. The customer is the society in our book in education. I put 10% on personal, and that would be actually higher if I guess it's the job that you're in, or the career that you're in, the place where you're at. If I'm getting the team, then I only need 10% from me because that 10% is built into that team satisfaction. But if I didn't have a good team, that would be a higher number. So that's kind of how I threw that out there. And then only 5% for the company, because a school's a school. They're all important. So that's where I put mine.
I'll go. So I started mine with more of a rank ordering. And so I listed it as personal being first, society second, team third, customer fourth, and my company being fifth. And again, being kind of in the education, but also a scientist, I really feel like I need to be intellectually stimulated in order for me to not only want to give my all, but for me to know what's driving and part of, I guess, what the rest of it's going to mean. But from that, I really want to do better for society. And with that drive, I want to have really clear goals that way. And I want a team that wants to work on those goals with me. And so I love a good competition, but I don't think it's super important for me for the company itself to be something competitive. But I would like really strong leadership because I think that it's really hard without a good team and without a good society-driven mission to do any of those. And so I do want to improve the customer. And so kind of like Leslie was saying, if that customers are students or are learners of whatever sort, I really want to be able to do the best for them. And I know I can't do that alone, which is why I would want a team. And I'd want those students and learners to really move forward and put society into a better step so that all of us benefit, not just those who are in the academy or university or whatever your prospective companies and industries might be.
Very cool. I really am enjoying everybody's responses. So I guess kind of have the same insight as everybody. You know, some of these categories kind of work in tandem with each other. But I gave 40% to both personal and society. I guess it's the Aquarius in me. We're, you know, humanitarians. And so that's really important for, you know, the greater good. I believe in that. And then team as 10%, and I gave 5% to both the company organization and the customer, partly because I feel like those other three fall under the society and what I personally am driven to do.
Steph, I'm also intrigued by this exercise in the sense that I can also think about as I'm listening to how others are answering it, depending upon where I am in my career, I will answer this exercise differently. Whether I'm early in a career, middle of my career, and in the current case at the end of my career, I can see where I would answer them very differently, depending upon where I was in my career path.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love hearing everybody's answers, and so this exercise came from a exercise that I have done at work, and we actually did this exercise 1 year apart from each other. So we did it in, I think, 2021 and then in 2022. And it was remarkable just seeing how much people shifted in just a single year, where things ranked, who identified more with one or another.
Yeah.
Would anybody else like to share?
Hi. Okay, so I am probably older. Well, no, not probably. I know I'm older than most of the other students. So mine is moving from one career to another. And once I left my former career, I kind of just started at the beginning and I've worked my way through. And I'm at this point, well, and I also have a cat who thinks she should chime in. But I'm at a point right now where I've made a determination to move onto a new path. And the reason I did it was the students that I saw. in undergrad. So for me, assuming that my customer is the student, at this point, the student is 30% of my reason for moving because there was no space for what I saw as necessary to their growth, necessary to support them. And I encountered it as being unavailable, inaccessible, dismissed as a student. So as an instructor, I feel like it's my duty to support that student. So for that reason, I'm giving the customer student 30%. It is 25% personal because somebody started off with the fact that they were an Aquarius. Well, I'm a Scorpio raised by an Aquarius. So I feel like somebody's got to take a stand in the gap, got to do it. 25% of my reasoning here is this is time for somebody to speak up. So that's 25%. And I attribute 15% to society, to team, and to company, because in order to stand in that gap, I've got to have a reason, which is the fact that these students need help making these changes structurally, integrally, and personally. So I get to stand in that gap. My team is not always there, so maybe I have to help them understand why they have to be there, which is why they don't go higher. The company is sometimes reluctant to hear this, so I have to be that nagging voice who will not go away. And society needs for me to do that. So 30% for the customer student, 25% personal, and then 15% for society, team, and company each. Okay, that's mine.
You see me? Okay, I'll take a stab at this. And this actually was a kind of a difficult exercise for me. And that's just because I view this as if I'm at my dream company or my dream organization. And if that's the case, then everything gets 20% to make up the 100. Because if I'm where I want to be, then all the other things are falling into place. Now, I was a little dismayed, though, that Dr. A said his team was a 10, so we'll have to talk about that offline. But, but that's how I looked at it. If I'm looking at it from a perspective of I am in the place where I want to be, so personally and all those other things are going to be in harmony, maybe not necessarily totally balanced, but everything can work together in harmony, and that's an ultimate goal for me.
Well, Veronica, thank you for pointing that out. And I will defend myself by adding, the interplay between the areas that are covered here. I mean, I just think it's fascinating how, as I said, I could waver, and you're right, because at times team could jump up and be really, really important for me. That's why I said, depending upon where I am and what's at, not at so much at stake, but what's to be accomplished, any one of these could be a leading area that I would give more to. That's why I said this is kind of an intriguing exercise to think about where and which ones of these are important to me when. I think is important, a consideration as I look at this exercise.
I would like to chime in right quick on that one.
Yep.
Based on what Veronica was saying, and I guess I think the flip side of that for me, and I just ranked mine: personal, society, team, customer, and company. And so for me, my motivation comes from my fulfillment. So my personal. So if I have the personal, then hopefully I will attract the people in a team. So for me, my fulfillment comes with if I have a crappy team, as long as I'm okay, I'm good. So it's personal, then the society. If I'm working for a good, if I'm working for the societal good or the greatest good, those two things are the most important to me. So if personal and society are the top two, and after that, I can be happy working with a crappy team. I could be happy working with the worst the worst customers, or whether I want the customers to be served, but for some reason, if they're not, I know I can thrive for that, but I can come to work knowing that I'm doing my best to improve that customer experience. And the company, same way, I could come to work every day happy, as long as my personal goals, my personal desires and societal things are met. It can be the worst company in the world. I'm going to come in singing, laughing, dancing, being my best Vita. So that's me.
Well, B, it's good to know you don't have to make a decision there. The rest of those things are taken care of for you.
Would anyone else like to share? One once, twice.
I do. I think it's interesting what you were saying, Dr. Emsley, about it depends on your time and your career. And I found that especially as a graduate student, I wanted something like team and society building because I forgot which person had mentioned it, that they saw that maybe it was Veronica, was missing in their everyday interaction with students. And so I felt that was definitely a piece. But yeah, thinking about if I was just picking my ideal company, like maybe that is something different. And so when you were talking about the team that you worked with, that they did the exercise and then a year later, I was really interested to hear if it mattered what stage in their career, what changed. Maybe you really do need a little more mentor or team when you're new and starting off as an early career person like myself, or early in your grad career or something like that. Whereas maybe if you're well established, you're tired of just doing everything with the team and you need a little bit more personal, or you really want to start being less inward focused and you want to be more outward focused, like society facing, because you've kind of seen those challenges while you've moved through the pipeline. So I'd be really interested to hear what you were seeing with some of your team members, because I do see that being one part of the struggle of, is that why I really need to value being personal right now, because I was tired of being part of a team that nothing could get done or something like that.
Yeah, so for me personally, personal has always been first for me, but the percentage has kind of changed. Like when I first did this exercise, I think I did like 90% personal, and then over time it's just transferred into other buckets. And one thing I saw that was really interesting, for me personally, my mentor at work is my direct manager. And we've worked together for several years. And when I first saw him do this exercise, he had personal first and foremost. And then when he did it the second year, it was like 100% company was most important to him. And during that interim, he had his family had grown and his career had grown. And I would have thought like personal would stay really important, but instead I think it made him take a step back and take a broader lens, I guess, to this exercise and say, oh, okay, well, I can have a lot of different things going on in my life to drive meaning. And I guess that's probably a good transition to Q&A. If there's any questions or anything from any part that we've chatted about, now would be a good time to ask.
Hey, Steph, one thing, if you wouldn't mind elaborating on, you mentioned during the presentation holding yourself accountable in addition to holding your employer accountable, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on that.
Sure. I would view that as mostly when you're finding yourself really dissatisfied with your career, with your job, with how things are going. Yes, part of it is on your employer, but it's also important for you to recognize that this is happening in your life and that it's ultimately up to you to change the trajectory of how things are going, whether that's changing employers or whether that's communicating with your employer to try to make things better. Chances are your employer is not going to proactively recognize that things are not going well for you. It's up to you to say, hey, I don't like the way this is happening and we need to change this.
Thank you.
You have it's a question, as far as a comment and a question. As far as life events, like Steph, you talked about being a parent now, and how that shifts your how it shifts your outlook or perception or whatever. And I know the most current event that affected all of us was COVID, and so we saw the shift in how people perceive the work environment, and even like personally for me, I'm the type of person, I love being in the office with the being able to interact with other people real time. But on the flip side of that, I realized, I can't imagine driving to work 5 days a week again. It was like an hour and a half to work, an hour going home. And I do realize the benefits of being able to, the benefits of the hybrid schedule. But sometimes you don't know until you encounter that, because I had no idea I was that tired mentally, physically, that stressed out driving to work every day. I didn't know it. And then, along came COVID, and it taught me, how tired I was, and the stress, I guess just the stress of the whole commuting thing and all that stuff. But anyway, I think it's important for us to take like life events and incorporate that into our evolution. As far as our career wellness, a lot of times, marriage, births, even deaths will cause us to rethink our priorities and what's really, really important. And so, so I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Vita. That is definitely important. Candidly, for me, COVID happened while I was taking actuarial exams. So for me personally, not a whole lot changed. I was still just at home studying constantly. But I've noticed since COVID, like as part of this career wellness initiative, that at the beginning of meetings, especially leadership meetings that I'm on, now we start those meetings with a check-in. And so we try to answer 3 questions. One is, I'm gonna biff what the 3 questions are. So hopefully I get them right. One is, are you engaged right now? Are you fully present in this meeting right now? And you answer that question. The second is there anything keeping me from being fully present? Maybe I'm planning a wedding, maybe I'm pregnant, maybe I have, someone in my family is really sick and that's going to be on my mind. It just helps to, when you're working with coworkers, either virtually or in person, like to your point, Vita, you have other stuff going on in your personal life. You're not just a robot showing up to work. If I'm checking my phone every 5 seconds, it's not because I'm trying to be disrespectful. Maybe somebody's sick and I need to check on, daycare because they're going to call me if somebody has a fever. It's just important to recognize your coworkers and the people that you're seeing every day as individual humans. And then our third question is always something fun, like what's, your favorite kitchen gadget? So not as heavy.
Well, one observation, Steph, on in trying to achieve this, I'm toward the end of my career, and it's ever present, it's never solvable, but it's always a goal. I don't, because our life situations change over time, our priorities change, and I think you have to, if you will, like you were just use your term, you have to even checking in with yourself of what's important to you, what's driving you, and where you're placing your priorities, and what's the priority for whatever the foreseeable future, the near future, the far future. Those, but I do those, you don't ever get there. It's one of those things that's elusive. It's always a goal, but you just never quite get there. And I guess I look at it as I've learned, it's a journey. And there are lots of side paths to be taken, and fits and starts. But you accept that it's the journey, and you're always working at trying to get there, knowing that you just never do, because you're always changing, you're always progressing, or regressing. Somebody may regress, but it's always changing regardless. And I just find that part of it is just trying to figure out in that process, being true to yourself, being happy. And if you can get and look at all those elements that you had laid out, and at the end of the day, are you pretty satisfied with where you are and what you're accomplishing? I think are really important. But it is a journey. I used to look for answers, and I don't think there are any answers anymore. I've lived long enough to see there are no answers like that. Not, at least not for me. There's not been answers. It's just part of the journey that we're on to live the best lives we can live, in whatever it is we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I don't know. +1 to everything you just said. Yeah, everything's always changing, but I think that's what's exciting about it, is just being able to recognize that and know that you're never gonna know everything.
Right. Exactly.
I think we probably have time for maybe one more question, if there is one. Otherwise, thank you, everybody. This was great. I really enjoyed speaking with all of you today. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Well, Steph, on behalf of all of us, let me just say thank you very much for the very thought-provoking. And I am very sure this will be watched by others. But this is really good, and it's something, as with COVID, the way we have all reevaluated our lives and how we do business. Vita, you were hitting on this. It fundamentally changed the way we're looking at life, and giving us a framework from which to discuss and think about these things is good. And I think everybody needs to take stock every once in a while and stop and think about these things and think about where we're going and how we're getting there and what's important to us on that journey. It's mightily important. And so thank you for laying this out for us today.
Yes, Steph, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate all the information that you presented. And like Dr. A said, I know that folks will be watching this over again. I do want to mention that Veronica has put a survey link in the chat. So when you get a moment, please click on the survey. And if that is all, we will adjourn for today. Thank you so much, Steph.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steph, very much. Very good.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. And thank you for tuning in.